He died on the job, filming a relatively low-key coup attempt in Thailand. But the internationally renowned newsman Neil Davis left a lasting legacy, and one the small Tasmanian community wants to protect. His footage and reports were seen by millions of television viewers around the world. Some say it influenced their view on the Vietnam War and helped bring its end forward. Few people realise Davis was born on a farm in Tasmania's Midlands and grew up in the small township of Sorell just outside Hobart. Tyson Shine looks back on the history of the Tasmanian newsman and how his hometown plans to keep the memory of Neil Davis alive.
Far from the historic battlefields of Southeast Asia, a brother and sister remember their famous sibling.
That was taken to Brisbane.
Brisbane?
Yeah, that's where he was playing football with the...
Neil Davis, or Tiny as he was known to Daryl Davis and Barbara Dunn, made his reputation as a cameraman, covering conflict in Vietnam, Cambodia and the wider Asian region.
Well, I was worried, of course, when he was away for a length of time. But it was his work, his choice, shall I say, to do it, and he enjoyed it.
That enjoyment, Daryl Davis says, was clear from a young age. He remembers Tiny as a curious boy with a passion for photographing anything and everything in 1940s Sorell.
He would climb up a Norfolk Island pine right up the top and carry his dog with him and say, take my photo or something like that, or he'll take our photo.
Strangely enough, they need more men, even with 1 million.
Neil Davis joined the ABC in Hobart in 1963 as the organisation's first staff cine-cameraman, covering events such as a major storm swell that almost destroyed the floating bridge across Hobart's River Derwent. It wasn't long until Davis built an impressive portfolio, joining international news agency Viz News in Singapore just 2 years later. Davis was at the top of his game when he was covering a minor Thai military coup in September 1985. As Davis set up his camera to film a tank at the gates of a seized broadcast tower, it opened fire, killing the Tasmanian and his soundman, Bill Latch. A newsman until the very end, Davis filmed his own death.
The funeral's been held in Bangkok of Australian photojournalist Neil Davis. Davis and his soundman, William Latch.
Almost 3 decades later, the community where Neil Davis grew up is determined to keep his memory alive. Plans are underway to develop a museum in his honour at a heritage-listed railway shed.
It is heritage listed. We're not able to pull it down, so the best thing is to look to see what we can do with it. We've got very few venues in Sorell to display our history, to have somewhere where tourists and residents and visitors alike can come and view the history of Sorell and some of its icons, and one of those icons is Neil Davis.
Cameraman David Brill worked alongside Neil Davis, covering some fierce battles.
In Cambodia, he came to me one night and said, David, there's a big battle tomorrow. Do you want to come along? It's going to be very dangerous. When we got there, Neil's there, and we started to walk into where the fighting was going on. And then the fighting started, and the bullets were flying around, and rockets and grenades and things like this. It was dreadful. I mean, I had my head down, but I didn't know where Neil was. He was gone somewhere. After the battle finished, me and my sound recorders came out of the battle, and we were sort of standing beside the car, a bit shaky, you know, because it's very dangerous stuff. And Neil comes out quiet and says, "How are you, dear boy? Have you got a cigarette?"
He remembers the Tasmanians' calm in the face of danger.
Obviously, coming from a small place like Tasmania and coming from Sorell, I think it gives somebody extra qualities that you're not brought up in the big cities where you think of yourself, because it's very tough in big cities. You've got to think of yourself a lot of the time. And I think growing up in a small rural area like Sorell gave him decency and his feet on the ground. He never changed. I mean, he was so highly respected by some of the most famous television correspondents in the world. Neil Davis was.
For all the international recognition, relatively few people knew of his connection to Sorell.
Well respected worldwide, but very few people know about him and his works.
Why do you think that is?
Good question. I'm not sure why he hasn't been promoted enough in Sorell. He was quite a lad, I believe, very courageous man. We have a Neil Davis car park, but that's about all.
Why he is not known by young students of journalism, I think it's a disgrace.
I think he would have been happy with it, but he wasn't one that liked a lot of publicity about his life, but he didn't try and hide anything, sort of thing.
The council's brought in a draftsman to draw up plans for the redevelopment of the historic railway shed, but there's a few hurdles in the way. What are the challenges going to be to make this come to fruition?
Money. It's got so much potential, and I'm very keen to see it progress, but I will say that we will need external funding.
The tragedy in Australia that the Film Archives or the War Memorial hasn't got all his footage, or a lot of his footage. It belongs to Reuters television. There is some of it, I think, in Australia somewhere. But the work that he did every day for 10 years, I think what the Sorell Council, or we should do if we can as Tasmanians, is try to get a lot of this footage, find out more about him, his personal effects, and make this a proper remembrance for Neil. Show his footage. You can talk about this man, but show his work. At the end of the day, it's the work, what he did, is the most important.